As we get started with this video hosted by Charities USA, which is the online magazine for Catholic Charities USA, we want to welcome all of our listeners and thank you for tuning in. My name is David Werning. I am the editor for Charities USA. We have a wonderful story to share with you today about a collaboration among Catholic Charities agencies, farmers, even truckers that got food to people in need during the pandemic. But before we jump into the story, I want to invite our participants to briefly introduce themselves. And then Jane Stenson, who is the Vice President for Food and Nutrition and also Poverty Reduction Strategies at Catholic Charities USA, will set the context for the story you're about to hear. So Dixie, do you want to begin with introducing yourself?
Yes, I am Dixie Shaw, and I am from Maine, Catholic Charities Maine, way up in northern Maine, and I am the program director for Hunger and Relief Services at Catholic Charities Maine.
Thank you. Jim?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jim Jans. I'm the supervisor for Catholic Social Services of Rhode Island, which is our Catholic Charities arm here in Providence, Rhode Island. And I also have a number of people here with me today. I have Linda Avantascini, who is the executive director here at St. Martin de Porres Center, where the potatoes actually came. And I have Sean O'Rourke, who's a community member, and Spencer Smith, who's a community member as well.
Thank you. Beth?
Hey everybody, I'm Beth Chambers from Catholic Charities of Boston, here in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm the director of our Greater Boston office and our South office down on the South Shore.
Thank you, everybody. Jane, do you want to take it away?
Sure. I'm Jane Stenson. As David said, I work on food and nutrition here at Catholic Charities USA. And there's so many stories to tell during these past 9 months. I mean, agencies across the country have just done amazing work. And we, in preparing for this video article in Charities USA, I tried to select one that would really showcase the work of multiple agencies. And this just seemed like a perfect story to tell. So I hope you enjoy it. Let me try to set a little context. As you know better than I, Catholic Charities USA is not typically in the business of providing food to local agencies. That's really a local responsibility. We work on national policy. We work on some national grants that we channel down to agencies, primarily around public benefits in the food space. But we don't buy products for you to distribute in your food pantry. Those are acquired locally through the food bank, through donations, or through direct purchase. But in the early days of the pandemic, you know, myself as well as everyone was just watching what was unfolding. And there were shortages in the grocery stores. We were hearing from agencies they couldn't get food in food banks. Food banks were sending maybe a third of what they typically needed, and yet demand was soaring. So many people, either through anxiety or really many through real serious need, were coming to our agencies looking for food assistance. It didn't take agencies long. I got some of the stories. Some, it took about a week, maybe 10 days, but agencies transitioned very quickly to grab and go, trying to distribute whatever they had. Again, with the loss of volunteers, so this was all largely on the backs of staff. They were actively seeking new partnerships as restaurants started to close down. We were hearing about a lot of restaurant donations, food that was going to go bad, and they were donating it to our agencies. So there were some amazing things happening. Catholic Charities USA, as I said, does not purchase food for local agencies, but over the years, we've gotten some very, very nice large donations. And we have a wonderful partnership with the Dairy Pricing Association, which is a dairy cooperative in Wisconsin. And they reached out to us several years ago, which started the relationship. But in the early days of the pandemic, I think this was around April, they reached out to see if we would want to take a donation of about 80,000 pounds of cheese. So considering the times, we said, absolutely, we would love that. So we were getting the cheese processed and trying to figure out where to distribute this. And we could have sent it all across the country, but it happened to be in New Jersey, so we were trying to keep our transportation costs somewhat low. So I was working on that schedule. I will say the Dairy Pricing Association, this was at the time where we were seeing news stories nightly of farmers dumping milk and farmers burying under crops because they couldn't get a market for their product. All the restaurants, schools, everything was closed up. So I started to get calls from farmers. This was before the USDA Farmers to Families program. So CCUSA, that never purchases food, really through the amazing work of our development staff, was able to raise funds, and we did start to do direct purchase. So we were purchasing milk from local farmers. We were purchasing from Cisco, and were able to move at least one truckload of food to some of our larger food distribution agencies to just help them, you know, sustain for a couple weeks. We also got a tremendous donation from Latter-day Saints, which distributed, again, a semi worth of food to many agencies around the country. But we soon, as we got our feet wet in this food distribution, realized the cost of trucking was exorbitant. We hadn't budgeted on that. Simultaneously, we got a beautiful donation from a company called Flexport that gave us donated trucking and is still working with us today on donated trucking. So that just suddenly opened up so many opportunities. We could accept donations that typically we would have had to turn away, because now we had the ability to move them. So I want to get into the story that we're showcasing today, but it was all sparked through a call I made to Dixie, again, in very northern Maine. We had some cheese to distribute, but she's about 5 hours from Portland, so it's even getting it to Portland is a bit of a trip. So I asked if by chance she could come and pick up the cheese if we could get it to our agency in Manchester, New Hampshire, which runs the food bank for the state of New Hampshire. And so that sparked this much larger conversation and this beautiful, I think, New England story. So I'm going to turn it over to Dixie to kind of share the next phase.
Thank you, Jane. Yes, it was a very exciting adventure, and it just kind of unfolded as we were, you know, it's one of those things, you're building the boat while you're sailing it or whatever. But we, I was talking with Jane, and we were talking about this desperate need. It was just desperate for the pantries, for the food banks. And we were talking about dumping crops and whatnot. And I said, well, you know, that's what's happening up here. I live in potato country, and there's farmers that can't get rid of their potatoes. And then we talked, and we thought, well, you know, Boston could use some potatoes. We could do that. So I called a friend of mine, and within 40 minutes, I think less than 40 minutes, I said, can I have 40,000 pounds of potatoes? And his first question to me was, what size bags? It wasn't like get out of town. It was what size bags. But anyway, we got the bag size we wanted, which was, I believe we ended up with 5-pound bags, which I think ended up being like 8,000 bags on a 53-foot trailer. But then we had the challenge of, okay, I got the potatoes. They were donated by McCain Foods USA, a big worldwide company up here that processes potatoes, makes French fries. They purchased the potatoes from one of my friends, a local farmer, who packed the potatoes, but then we had to get them to the New England states. And we were trying to figure that one out. And Jane says, well, can you arrange some trucking? Well, I have worked for many years with the Teamsters, Local 340 here in Maine, but also the Joint Council of New England, number 10, out of Worcester, Mass. And they've done a lot of trucking for us. So I immediately called down to my friend at the Teamsters Local 340, asked if they would be able to do this trucking for us, get these potatoes down to Boston, and Jane had said Rhode Island and possibly New Hampshire. So there was a few stops, and they said they'd be happy to do it, but they did not have a refrigerated trailer. I said, well, I have a refrigerated trailer because I have a couple of 53-foot trailers that are reefers, refrigerated trailers. So I said, if you want to come up with your truck, hook onto my trailer, we'll get it loaded, and then you can take it back to Boston and Providence and whatever, and maybe you could pick up my cheese on the way back at Manchester. So it became not just one state involved in this wonderful opportunity. It was multiple states. I mean, it was just a wonderful thing. And the potatoes went to the Northeast, and they came from us, and they were free, and the trucking was free, and the Teamsters helped us, and the farmers helped us, and this McCain processing potato plant helped us. And let me think, did I leave anybody out? It was, and then the cheese processors out in Wisconsin. Who'd imagine all this would happen? And it did.
Thank you, Dixie. I do want to mention we also were able to get it to Catholic Charities of Fall River and Worcester, Massachusetts.
So there were several stops, yes. And Rick, the truck driver that we used from the Joint Council of New England, he's from Mass, and he was so happy to be able to be part of this and knew his way around and used to do trucking back in the old days. So it was just kind of like getting back in the driver's seat, and he was delivering potatoes all over to various places throughout his backyard, basically.
And Jim, you're sitting in the place where the potatoes came, right?
Yeah, that's right. You know, certainly very much in the early days of the pandemic, and even now, the food security of the community is something that's weighs very heavily on all of us. The food pantries don't have as much food. The soup kitchens aren't even open. So for the people that we serve here in the Providence area, they're just not able to get that food that they need. And we heard that 10,000 pounds of potatoes were headed to Providence, and this was great. This is wonderful. This is something that's going to be put to use right away. And we're talking about all these agencies working together, and I think and on a smaller scale, we have that here in Providence. One of the things we're also missing during this pandemic is a sense of community. We're not able to see the people we normally see. We're not able to hug the people we normally hug. But we were able to bring a pretty wide group of people together to help bring this food to the people in the neighborhood. We had folks come down from our emergency shelter, which is kind of right around the corner from here, to help unload the truck. We had different community members able to get out and get these potatoes out almost immediately. We had college students come down and help unload the trucks. So, we were able to get a large group of people together. That's kind of the story that we wanted to tell here down in Providence, is how these community members together. That's why we have a couple of different people that I have here to speak. Linda, who I'll bring on in a second, is the director here at the St. Martin Center. We have Sean O'Rourke, who's also a community member, and Spencer Smith, who's a college student, who helped unload those trucks. So I'm going to ask Linda just to come on and speak for a couple of minutes now.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Welcome.
Thank you, David. Good seeing you, Jane and Dixie. Great hearing your story because, coming to St. Martin de Porres Center, I got the call that we were going to receive 10,000 pounds of potatoes. And I said, this is wonderful because people are always asking for vegetables. They receive a lot of canned goods, but, potatoes, you can't beat that. I mean, that puts a lot on the dinner plate for many of the folks that we serve. But of course, when we heard we were receiving 10,000 pounds, we said, we got to reach out to the people that we've been partnering with. And I have to tell you that, Jane, because of the melt that first came in, that built that collaboration within our community. I partnered with around 15 organizations. About 5 of our Catholic churches are in that part of that organization. You're going to hear from one of the people who were instrumental in helping us with 2 agencies in a few minutes. But because of that, I was able to reach out to them, and they were here with their trucks to pick up the food to make sure it gets to their pantry and disperse it, as just like we were able to do here at the pantry. I have to tell you, Dixie, people are still crying for more potatoes here, and they love the potatoes because They were, some people say that's the best potato that I've had in a long, long time. They were fresh, and they, you know, they were just wonderful. The other plus about all of this with the community, and you know, we have to say we're really blessed, is we have these wonderful, wonderful volunteers. We not only called on, I mean, we had folks from the diocese. Jim was out there unloading the truck, as well as volunteers here. We had volunteers in the community, college students. We had family members, and we had folks from the shelter. Everybody came together and they worked to unload the truck. And 10,000 pounds is a lot of potatoes. We found that out after a couple of bags off the truck. But again, you know, we could not do the work that we're doing here without the support of Catholic Charities USA. You've been supporting us from day one of this pandemic and continued to support us. The milk was a big plus, and the potatoes have been just wonderful. I don't want to take up too much time because I want to introduce Sean O'Rourke, who was one of the people who I met because of the milk and potatoes, and we are still friends and still working together here at St. Martin de Porres Center. So I'm going to turn it over to Sean.
Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sean O'Rourke, and I'm just a volunteer. And
Not
Linda's
just,
right, we met-
not just a volunteer.
Not just.
Well, Linda and I met through milk and potatoes, and it's really blossomed into quite a great relationship that we have. But if you think about this lowly potato, that it travels from Maine down here to Providence, and what I did is I would pick up from Macaulay Village and also for the Edgewood Patuxent Food Closet. And that lowly potato went to feed 23 women who lived at the village who were victims of domestic violence and their children. And they're all homeless and they're living here in the village. And then the overflow went to the Edgewood Patuxent Food Closet for families who were living in a zip code close to the church who had nothing to eat. I mean, if you think about it, it's really an amazing story. From Dixie, from you and the phone call, all the way down here to Providence, feeding so many families. And it's been fabulous. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, Beth, I'm sorry.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Spencer Smith. Thank you all for having me.
Good afternoon. Welcome.
Thank you. I just want to touch on what everyone already said before, you know, unpacking all the potatoes, helping everyone out. You know, it was a great sense of community. And the first thing I noticed once I got here and was helping everyone out was that it was just such a welcoming environment. You know, everyone was just so grateful that, you know, to have the opportunity to, you know, help the whole community out, be together as a community, and just, you know, kind of just be together, give back to people who are hungry. You know, it was also another thing that, you know, it was just a really good experience for me, because I was kind of inside of a neighborhood and experience that, you know, that I'm not normally in. You know, I have food on my table every night, and it's just something that I don't normally experience. So it was just a really good experience for me to be able to see people to have food on their table at night, you know. So It was just very, very nice, you know, and especially, again, to give back to the community, be a part of the community, and all be together.
No, thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Are you on the basketball team? Did I understand that they recruited a basketball team, or were you another volunteer?
Oh, no, well, I was a volunteer, but I'm a college student. I go to URI. I used to play hockey.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for everything you did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then I think the truck went to, oh, I'm sorry, Jim, go.
No,
yeah.
no. I was we didn't want a blank screen. So.
Right.
Traveled on to Boston's.
Beth, you're still muted.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Sorry. I have to start by saying that I think that my thoughts and what I have felt since this pandemic began as someone who's overseeing our food pantries now is that what we have is the story of the loaves and fishes, and what we have seen every single week, and especially what CCUSA has done with us, for us. Jane said the word semi. We, in our food pantries, we never thought of semi trucks. We have, pickup trucks, and we have the biggest is a 26-foot truck. And then all of a sudden to see these semi trucks pulling up to our parking lot and asking where our loading dock is and saying, well, we don't have one. And yet everybody worked together to get the potatoes off the truck and the cheese and the milk every week. And it was, I don't know what we would have done without it. I mean, we are serving currently to over 2,000 families a week. We are having to make up those bags of food before the people come. It is a 7-day-a-week operation now. It is for me, for those here at Catholic Charities Boston, calling in every single favor we could to get food from other sources, to get people to help us. At Thanksgiving, I got the Boston College football team to pack 1,500 bags of food for us to give out for Thanksgiving. It's calling our neighbors, calling our friends, and in all of this time, no one has said no. Everyone has stepped up because, as was said before, we don't have the volunteers that we used to have. We had to move one of our operations outside because our child care center opened up in June. So we had to change everything we did. And I'm very grateful that even 9 months later, we're able to do it. And, for all of us, we don't see an end in sight, but we do see more opportunities as we move into the winter. So thank you.
Jane, did you have any summary thoughts or any conclusions that you want to share?
Well, just to say, we could have picked almost any region of the country. Everybody is knee deep in this work. And so please, I hope you see yourself. If you listen to this story, I hope you see yourself in this work. These are your peers. We know that this is happening in California and Illinois and Oklahoma and all over the country. So it has been just an honor to sit where I sit and hear so many of your stories. So I wish we could bring more to you, but and we will continue. I know it's not over yet, so we will continue to look for opportunities, and where we can move product, we will try to do that. So thank you.
And I've been inspired to try to find another load or two of potatoes to get down to the cities in the Northeast.
Excellent.
I always say,
Thank you.
I live in the Garden of Maine up here.
That's great. Listen, I want to just conclude by thanking everybody, thanking you, of course, our panelists, for participating in this, and for our listeners. If anyone would like information about the Catholic Charities agencies represented here, or any of our Catholic Charities agencies in the United States, you can go to the CCUSA website, which is at CatholicCharitiesUSA.org. And on that homepage, in the top menu, there's an item labeled Find Help. And that's where you can find a list and contact information for all of the local Catholic Charities agencies in the United States. And remember, as the panelists said, talking about community and helping each other, coming together, if you need help or if you can offer help, call your Catholic Charities agency, and together we can take care of each other as we're called to do as members of God's family. God bless you, everyone.